We're not in the plastic soup. Where are we? The plastic soup. 1/2 hour, 1 nautical mile at the edge of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So the point is that this is a worldwide phenomenon. The oceans are all connected. There's truly only one world ocean, and everywhere in it we're seeing this same phenomenon, an accumulation of our plastic trash. So we've done these voyages in 1999, 2000, 2002, 2005, 2007, 2008, and now in 2009. The vessel we used was built from scratch, designed for this type of research. It's got a gantry that can deploy this trawl unit off the back. We call it a manta trawl. It captures everything on the surface like as if a manta ray were skimming the surface. It has a big wide mouth and a 1/3 of a millimeter mesh net designed to catch zooplankton.
So I think it's really important to understand how the breakdown works of the plastic that's out here. A bucket like this, which we recovered the other day, this happens to be a bucket. As an example, it's a bucket that was obviously used as a water retrieving bucket off a boat, and it got away from the person that was either retrieving water, or it snapped or something and broke, and so it broke. It was an accident. Nobody meant to throw this away. But this bucket goes along and slowly begins to break apart. And it breaks apart starting with big chunks, and then it breaks up into smaller pieces. In the sun, it becomes very, so if I can show you, the result of the sun and the salt water, very brittle. Very brittle. It breaks very, very easy, so it breaks up into little pieces. The larger pieces, they tend to get fouled up by a lot of marine organisms, barnacles, pelagic crabs, things like that, which some people could say, well, it's giving habitat a place to live. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want marine organisms growing on something that is unknown as to whether it releases toxins into the water. And quite honestly, plastic, it's not been determined yet if plastics release toxins into the water. I really don't want to assume no. So anyways, it breaks into smaller pieces, and then from there, the pieces just get smaller and smaller and smaller until you get pieces like this. And this is the kind of piece that will be ingested by a fish or a bird or something thinking it's food. Because this is now getting down to the size of things that are normally in the ocean that are normally eaten.
Keeps going and keeps going and keeps going until the plastic is the size of a tiny, what we call a nano particle, a millionth of a millimeter. A very small particle is able to penetrate into our bodies. and we're beginning to become plastic people. So not only are we getting the chemicals from plastic as part of the problem, we're also getting the plastic itself now, because this failure of the plastic industry to take back its products and reuse them is resulting in plastic being left in the environment. As it's left in the environment, it becomes brittle, it becomes able to be broken into smaller and smaller pieces. And eventually those pieces become so small that they're just like bits of nutritious food that would be ingested and moved around inside your body and in the body of other animals as well. A study in fish, people looked at, they put little tiny plastics in a tank of fish, and the fish ate the plastic, and they noticed that the fish didn't go as far looking for food as they normally would, and they didn't spend as much time looking for food as they normally would. So plastic was slowing down their response. And that makes sense when you think about the fact that plastic is what you wrap around wires to stop them from shorting out against one another. Plastic is an insulator. It stops electricity from moving. And our brains are electrical. And you don't want to stop the electricity from moving inside your brain or the brain of any other animal by filling it with little tiny nanoparticles of plastic. So we now have this situation where plastic is invading what we call the entire biosphere, the world of life. The world of life is now being compromised by the world of man and man's products. Humanity is making materials that nature can't digest. And those materials now are becoming part of our water, becoming part of our food. We're finding them in beer, finding them in wine, finding them in honey, finding them in our salt even. Can you imagine salting your food with plastic inside those grains of salt? But that's what we're actually finding. So it's very important that we think about ways to eliminate plastics that are causing these problems, since we're not getting any help from the industry right now. They're just making more and more of these things, smaller and smaller packages, more and more difficult to recycle. So I think when George rejoins us again, what we'll talk about is the way that in your own home and in your own family and in wherever it is that you consume food, that you begin to be smart about the plastics that you use, that you begin to eliminate plastic packaging from your habits and from the way that you purchase in the market. You can go to the market and buy products from vendors that are not selling them wrapped in plastic. You can go to restaurants that don't use plastic takeout. You can bring your own container to a restaurant and have it filled with food and take it home and reuse it again. These are traditional methods that still work. And that's, I believe, what George wants to emphasize is that not only can we begin to eliminate plastics from our food consumption habits, but we can begin to make things ourselves that serve the function of being food containers that can go shopping with things that we make out of natural materials. We can wrap things in natural materials. People are making wrappers for food out of cloth and beeswax. It works very well to cover foods instead of plastic wrapper. So I think what happened was that George's trying to show the video froze him out. So I'm going to have to leave the discussion.
Well, I just
And
came back.
uh,
I just came back.
there
Thank you,
go.
Captain. Yes. There are some questions from some of the students who actually want to go back to attend the classes. Okay, so let me give you this the slot. Now we would ask the student from the school from Tunisia to ask their question because they wanted to leave, and then we'll ask the school from Botswana to ask their questions. And after that, we can ask the teachers if they have the questions. So the Tunisian school, if you have any questions, can you please come forward and ask? Ask your question.
Is it possible to bury the plastic underground?
So one of the questions is from the Tunisian school, international school, Victor Hugo. They were asking if the plastic can be buried underground.
That's what we call landfilling, and it's not a good solution to plastic pollution. It's better than burning, I'll say that. Burning releases extremely toxic particles into the atmosphere.
Okay, there's a problem with the mic, I think. Can you hear something?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Yeah, can you ask the question? Yeah.
So we're answering the question about whether burying is a good thing for plastic. And the answer is it's not good, but it's better than burning because burning is much more toxic than just having the plain plastic. It's releasing the toxics into the air. So not only are you getting plastics in other ways, you're getting it when you breathe that toxic smoke. But ideally, where plastic needs to go is back to the manufacturer that made it. Until we have that set up, what we're going to have to do is make building blocks out of the plastic. There are ways to compress it with heat. You can even do it in an artisanal fashion by melting it into a mold. You can make a mold out of metal, put a bunch of plastic in it, and melt that plastic into a building block. And then we can build with plastic. So that would be a better solution than burying.
Is it possible to bury the plastic under?
Oh, you did not hear the answer, I guess. So I'm sorry they did not hear the answer.
Yeah, can you hear me, Tunisia?
Yes, they can hear you.
Okay. Burying is not part of the solution. We do not want to burn it, and we do not want to bury it. We want to make things out of it again. And with mixed plastic, the only thing that we can make right now are building blocks. We can melt it, mix the plastic together, make a mold, and melt it into a building block. That's about the only thing that's being done with mixed plastics right now that makes any sense. No burn, no bury. If it can't be recycled, what we're going to do is we're going to make building blocks out of it by melting it into a mold. That's the way that a company called Bifusion is making them professionally, but it can also be made artisanally.
Why we don't use our recycling manufacturers?
Okay, now let me explain the question, Captain. What they want to know is that they feel that every country has recycling manufacturers. So why is it not possible to use the recycling manufacturers of their countries? And Captain, if you can also answer the myth of recycling.
Yeah. The problem is that only a very few plastics are profitable to recycle. So those recyclers in your country, whatever country it is, will not take all the plastics back. They will only take certain ones back. So what we need to do is design products that will only be made and manufactured if there is a recycler that will take them back. That's why in Europe they have the Green Dot program where the manufacturers have to pay to have the plastics picked up and taken to recyclers. It's not possible for every plastic that's made today to be recycled. So those plastics have to be eliminated. That's why Georgia's program is so important, because it targets the plastics that can't be recycled. yes, there are plastics, and that is the future. Recycling is indeed the future way out of plastic pollution, but only if the manufacturers cooperate by making recyclable plastics and creating the route for plastics to get back to those recyclers after they're used by the consumer.
Thank you, Captain. Okay, Delta Water School, you have a question. Go ahead, Botswana School. Delta Waters, can you go ahead? Go ahead.
Okay, when plastic, when it's in the ocean and soil, does it help to, does it have any positive benefits to the environment?
The question was, plastic in the ocean, is there any positive benefits? I think the answer there is no. In the soil, if the soil is very hard, it could make the soil softer. It also is used in agriculture to keep bugs away from the plants, like in strawberries here in the United States. The rows of strawberries are covered with plastic, and then the strawberries are planted in slits in the plastic, and that keeps the bugs that are in the soil, because the strawberries typically rest on the top of the soil, and the strawberries have to be watered. So when the plastic sheeting, called agricultural film, is laid on top of the row of strawberries, it keeps the organisms in the soil from eating and making rotten the strawberries that are growing on the plastic. Now, it is possible to make that agricultural film out of biodegradable plastic. So we haven't talked about that yet, but it is possible to make plastics that will biodegrade faster in the soil than typical polyethylene, which is the normal plastic you would use in agricultural applications. So these polyhydroxyalkanoates are one of the forms of plastic that will degrade in the soil. It would be great if we could make agricultural film out of degradable plastics. Then the benefits they have for agriculture would not result in a permanent material being mixed into the soil. So yeah, there are benefits in agriculture for the use of plastic, but having trash in the ocean, there's really no positive benefit for trash in the ocean.
Okay, and yes, go ahead and ask a question.
The plastics that Captain mentioned that are used in agriculture, can't we use them instead for like our daily usage of plastics? To make the plastics, instead of the plastics that we use every day, can't we use that material that he mentioned to make plastics that we can use since they degrade faster?
Yeah, the plastic I mentioned is now this biodegradable plastic. It's now being used to make things that were before made by non-biodegradable plastic. So yes, we can use the material, which can be made from waste gases. The company that's making a plastic, which is degradable, and PHB plastic, which is degradable, they get the gas from closed coal mines. That's methane gas that's escaping into the atmosphere. There's a lot of methane gas that's escaping to the atmosphere with global climate change. That gas can be captured and it can make degradable plastics. So yes, my goal, and I think all of our goals, should be to pressure the industry to make as many things out of degradable plastics as possible so that we eliminate the plastic plague in our air, land, and sea.